All right, I believe you're able to see the screen. Kindly confirm.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. All right, so you're going to start elasticity today. Elasticity is not it's not a hard one. It's not a hard topic. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but as usual, we are going to move, step by step, slowly but sure. All right. So yeah, we are going to start just like that. So every time we're talking about elasticity, basically we'll be talking about something that is elastic, right? Being elastic basically means that like something can like it can increase. It's elastic. It can increase, right? But in this case, we'll be talking about elasticity from the managerial point of view. Okay, we'll be talking about elasticity from the managerial point of view, and one thing that's worth noting is that when you're talking about elasticity, we are talking about the impact of something on something. All right. If one thing changes by 1 unit, how is that 1 unit change going to impact another thing? All right. So that is the idea of elasticity. So with elasticity, we're just talking about, or we're going to try to analyze the impact of one thing on another thing. If one factor changes by 1 unit, how is that change going to impact another factor? All right, that is elasticity. So in this case, our analysis is going to be in percentages. Okay, our analysis will be expressed in percentages. Our answers will be expressed in percentages. All right, so we'll be asking ourselves questions like, if price increases by 1 unit, by how many, or by what percent will output change? All right, if price reduces by 1 unit, by what percent will output change? You see that? So our analysis will be in percentages. Okay, so if this happens, by what percent will will the other factor change? Okay, so that is what we're going to be talking about from now onwards. But of course, elasticity is based on demand and supply. We cannot talk about elasticity if we don't understand demand and supply, because we'll be asking ourselves questions like, if price increases by 1 unit, how is that? Okay, how will this affect quantity demanded? By what percentage will quantity demanded reduce as a result of an increase in price? Okay, that is from the demand side. From the supply side, the question can be, assuming that price increases by 1 unit, how is that, by what percentage will supply increase, or sorry, by what percentage will supply increase as a result of a 1 unit increase in price? So basically, we'll be dealing with, you know, just a bit of mathematics, where, for instance, we'll be given a demand function, and then questions will follow. Questions will follow to say, let's say, calculate the elasticity of demand, calculate the elasticity of income, you know, calculate, let's say, cross elasticity of good X and good Y. And a very good example is question 6 in the assignment. Okay, question 6 in the assignment is based on elasticity. Okay, where we have a demand function, and then question A is saying determine the on price elasticity of demand and state whether demand is elastic, inelastic, or unitary elastic. So what we are going to cover today will help us answer question 4. Okay, so yeah, so what we're going to do today is going to help us answer question 6, sorry, not question 4, question 6. Okay, yeah, so what we're going to do is going to help us answer question 6. All right, so with elasticity, I've said that elasticity basically, tries to answer questions that pertains to the percentage change as a result of a change in one thing. Okay, so for instance, if price increases by 1 unit, by what percentage will demand respond? By what percent will supply respond? That is elasticity. All right, so suppose, let's make an assumption. Suppose price of a good was to increase by 10%, for instance. Okay, yeah, so suppose that there is a 10% increase in the price of a particular good. What would happen to the quantity demanded for that particular good? Right? So we know from demand and supply, we know that when there is an increase in the price, quantity demanded is supposed to reduce, right? But the question that we want to understand, or the question that we want to answer, is by what degree will quantity demanded change as a result of this increase in the price? Okay, we understand that yes, as a result of an increase in price, demand is supposed to reduce, quantity demanded is supposed to reduce, but to what extent, by what degree? And this degree is measured by percentages. Okay, another thing is, if price was to increase by 10%, how is this going to affect revenue? By what percentage will revenue change as a result of an increase in the price? All right, so because of such questions, right, it is important for managers to understand the type of market they're dealing with, one. Secondly, it's also important for managers to also understand the nature of elasticity that is existing in that particular market. If, for instance, you are in if you're in the food industry, you as a manager, you are supposed to know that if we are to increase the price of, let's say, carpenter, all right, by 1/4, okay, if we are to increase the price of carpenter by 1/4, you're supposed to know that it will either, consumers will respond in this manner. You're supposed to know. You're supposed to know how demand is going to respond to that increase in price. Okay? Also, you are supposed to know how, for instance, a decrease in price is going to affect your consumers. By what degree will my consumers respond to the decrease in price? So that is elasticity. Okay? So because of these issues, it is therefore important for us to understand elasticity. Alright. Now, there are various types of elasticity. Alright? There are various types of elasticity. There is price elasticity of demand. There is income elasticity of demand. There is cross elasticity of demand. There is also price elasticity of supply, income elasticity of supply. There is also cross elasticity of supply. All right. So we are going to study these, at a slow pace, because remember, the idea is to make sure that each one of us understands the concept, so that tomorrow when we go for work, we can have a conversation with our friends to say, okay, elasticity is about this and that, this and that, this and that. Okay, fine. So with price elasticity of demand, really the question is, or the question will be, if price was to change by this percentage points, okay, how will demand respond to that? All right. So with price elasticity of demand, we are just saying elasticity is equal to the percentage change in quantity. In this case, it's quantity demanded. Yeah. So it's percentage change in quantity demanded as a result of percentage change in price. That is price elasticity of demand. So price elasticity demand is the change, okay, the percentage change in quantity as a result of a percentage change in price. If price was to change by 10%, how, to what extent, to what degree will quantity demanded respond? To what degree will quantity demanded change? So that is price elasticity of demand. Okay? So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that price elasticity of demand is nothing but the percentage change in quantity demanded as a result of the percentage change in price. Okay? So of course, depending on the variable you're dealing with, okay, you can then simply replace that particular variable that you're dealing with. It could be income, it could be price. Okay, the formula is not going to change. The nature of the formula is not going to change. The nature of the formula will remain the same. So in this case, since we're talking about price elasticity of demand, we are going to use this particular formula, that price elasticity of demand, which is just represented by E. In other books, it's this epsilon, this type of E, and like a small p down, which is price elasticity. Okay, which is price elasticity. So price elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded per percentage change in price. All right. So that is what price elasticity of demand is all about. All right. So here is a scenario. If there's a 1% increase in price of a good, all right. So let's assume that there's a 1% increase in the price of a good, and that reduces the quantity demanded by 2%. So we have to go back to the formula. Okay, we have to go back to the formula. The statement is saying that assume that there's a 1% increase in price. Just there. We know that from demand, from the analysis we had on demand, we know that an increase in the price will have a negative impact on the quantity demanded, right? So in this case, since there's a 1% increase in the price of this particular good, we know that the impact of this is a reduction on quantity demanded, right? So yeah, if a 1% increase in the price of a good reduces the quantity demanded by 2%, what will be the price elasticity of demand? So we have to go back to the formula. The formula is saying that price elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity, okay, due to a percentage change in price. So in our example, we are saying that quantity reduced by 2%. So quantity reduced, which means there was a negative 2 change in quantity, a negative 2% change in quantity. Genuine, that's what it means, right? So what we're going to do is, we know that the quantity reduced by 2%. price rose by 1%, which means that the percentage change, in this case the numerator, the percentage change in quantity is the 2. Okay, so on top of 2%, denominator, the percentage change in price was 1%, right? Okay, so 1 into 2 is 2, which means that as a result of this 1% increase in price, quantity demanded reduced by 2%. So what elasticity does is, it's just adding more stake to what we discussed last time. Because from what we discussed last time, we know that an increase in price will have a negative impact on the quantity demanded, right? But with elasticity, we are now going to answer the question of to what extent. To what extent? Yes, we know that quantity is going to reduce, but by what degree? So we are saying that the degree to which quantity is going to reduce in this case is 2%. Alright? Alright, so that's what price elasticity is all about. So we are saying that price elasticity is just the percentage change in quantity demanded as a result of the percentage change in the price. If the price increases by, let's say, 1%, and so if price increases by 1%, what is the impact of that increase on quantity demanded? How is quantity demanded going to react? So that is the idea of elasticity. Another example, a 4% price increase that result in, so already we know that there is a 4% price increase. Okay, there's a 4% price increase. So we know from demand that an increase in the price is going to reduce quantity. So even before we finish the statement, we know that since there's an increase in the price, quantity demanded, obviously quantity demanded is expected anyway to reduce, right? So a 4% price increase that results in a 2% decrease in quantity demanded is going to give us an elasticity of, so let's go back to the question. The question is saying that elasticity is equal to percentage change in quantity over change in price, right? And the statement is saying that the change in price is 4. So there was an increase. There was an increase in the price of 4%. And because of this 4% increase in the price, quantity demanded has reduced. Alright? Quantity demanded has reduced by 2%. Okay? Quantity demanded has reduced by 2%. So, going back to the question, okay? The percentage change in quantity is the reduction. So, this reduction means that we should have a negative sign. Maybe that's one thing I didn't mention. I didn't mention in the previous analysis. Check. There is a decrease, and mathematically a decrease is represented by what? A negative sign, right? A minus. And an increase mathematically is represented by a plus. So since there is a 2% decrease, which means that the change in quantity, okay, the numerator, the change in quantity is going to carry a negative sign, which means that there is this 2% reduction. Okay, if it was a 2% increase, it would have just been positive 2. Okay, it would have just been positive 2, but it's a negative in this case. It's a negative. All right, so we are now going to have a negative 2 as the change in quantity divided by the change in price increased, which means that the percentage for price it's going to be positive. Okay, it's going to be positive because there was an increase. Right? So when you do a mathematics, you're going to find that elasticity is going to be 0.5 or negative 0.5, which is half 1/2. Okay, but there's a note here that price elasticity of demand is always a negative number. Why? Because price elasticity tells us about the movement along the demand curve. So remember, I've said that what this topic does is just adding more stake to that skeleton we started building. Okay, remember, from demand and supply, we say that, well, the demand curve, blah, 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 downward sloping and all that. And remember, we said that with a change in quantity, a change in quantity is brought by a change in price, right? We say that a change in price is going to lead to change in quantity demanded, and that is what we are talking about here. We are saying that if there is a change in price, how is that going to affect quantity demanded? We're not saying how is that going to affect demand. We're saying that how is that going to affect quantity demanded, meaning that the movement should be along the demand curve. Okay, so elasticity is going to have a negative side always. Why? Because we are talking about the price is increasing. As the price is increasing, quantity demanded is reducing. So positive plus negative is negative, right? So that is the reason why elasticity is going to have a negative sign. It's because, yes, one factor is increasing, in this case price is increasing, but quantity demanded is reducing. So on top, you have, for instance, a negative figure. Then down, sorry, on top you have a negative figure, and then down you have a positive figure. What you're going to have is a negative figure. So that is the reason why price elasticity of demand is going to be negative always.
Mr. Lungu,
Yes, madam.
do you mean to say we can't have a question where prices decreased instead of increasing? We can't
No.
have such a question.
We can have such a situation where, yes, price has decreased and quantity has increased, but either way, even in such a case, the answer will still be negative. Why? Because if price has decreased, which means the denominator is negative. Because going back to demand, a reduction in price should increase quantity. So yes, on top you're going to have a positive number, but then you're going to have a negative number, and the final answer will still be negative.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, fine. All right. So, how do we determine that, in this case, demand is elastic, demand is inelastic, or demand is not elastic at all? There are such cases where even if you decrease the price, there will be no impact on quantity demanded. Okay. And there are also times when even if you increase the price, there is no impact on quantity demanded. There are such extreme cases. You increase the price, let's say by 50%, demand is still intact. There are such cases, and a very good example is a very good example that I can give is demand for insulin. Diabetic people and all that. Yeah, those people, for them to live, they depend on those. Yeah, they depend on insulin. If they not jab themselves, you know what happens, right? Yeah. So for them, insulin is a necessity. They can't live without it. So even if the price was to double, they just have to buy insulin. And yeah, that's why there are, in most cases, especially in these developed countries, there are laws that govern such special goods, where you cannot, even if you are this big pharmaceutical company, you cannot just wake up and increase the price, because you're going to hate the people. Okay. So, but assuming that you know that demand for this particular good is inelastic, even if I increase the price, people still come and buy. For instance, what Zesco does. ZESCO knows that even if they were to increase ZESCO tariffs today, yes, people are going to complain, the social media will be flooded, there will even be lectures on social media, but people still buy. So there are such extreme cases where demand is inelastic. Even if you increase the price, there will be no impact on the quantity demanded. Actually, for extreme cases, increase the price, people still increase. People will still subscribe to ZESCO anyways. So demand is still increasing for them. There are such extreme cases anyways. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that we are together. Yeah. All right. So how do we tell that demand is elastic? How do we tell that demand is inelastic? And how do we tell that demand is maybe perfect elastic or whatever? So there are, basic laws or rules that we follow. Okay, they're very basic, just per surface figure. All right. So demand is elastic if the price elasticity is more on the negative side. Okay. Now, please listen to this. For you, for instance, if you have calculated the change in quantity demanded per change in price, and then you find that your answer is, for instance, -2. The answer is, for instance, -3. That should tell you that the demand in this case is elastic. Okay? And what does it mean when you say demand is elastic? Demand is elastic if an increase in the price is going to lead to a decrease in quantity demanded. For instance, there is a 10% increase in price, and then because of that 10% increase in price, quantity demanded reduces by 20%. Then it means that demand in this case is elastic. Why? The percentage reduction in quantity demanded is more than the percentage increase in the price. The response of consumers to this increase in price is more than the increase in price. Okay? The degree to which consumers have responded to a percentage increase in price is more than the increase in the price. The demand in this case is said to be elastic. And your answer will always be greater than something like that's why we usually say that numbers should be presented in modulars. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to say that demand is elastic if price elasticity is more to the negative side. Okay, in other words, you can just say that demand is elastic if the price elasticity is greater than 1 in the modulus. Modulus means that you are forgetting the negative sign. Okay, so when you have numbers like you have calculated, you find a number like -2, you introduce modulus, it becomes +2. So still, it means that demand is elastic. So to avoid confusion, okay, let me just say that we say that demand is elastic.
Mr. Longo,
Yes, sir.
how are you?
Hello?
Hello,
Sir, I can get you.
Mr. Longo.
Yes, sir.
This is Mr. Mpam.
Yes.
Do you have any example on this you are giving us? Maybe on a graph, the one like the one we were doing yesterday?
Oh, on a graph.
Yeah, because at least for me, I'm having a challenge here to just
Okay. Let me see what I can do.
yeah, so that when you just go to your store, when you go to this side, this here is that stage, and maybe it's easy for me to get it.
Okay. Let's try to go that route. All right. So this is the font is quite small. Maybe here. All right. So, pardon my line is quite. Pardon me, my line is quite funny. So this is our number line. Here we have a 0, right? This side to the left, this is our negative. Okay, that's a negative. And this side to the right, that's our positive, right? That's our positive side. Fine. So what I mean is this. Here, since we have a 0, okay, this side, let's say here we have -1. Okay, so I have our -1. This thing is tripping today, oh Lord. And then here we have, let's say, -2. Just like that, it goes and goes until negative infinite, right? So what I mean is this. A situation where you find that your answer is beyond this -1. Okay? Starting from, let's say your answer is 2. For simplicity's sake. Your answer is 2. -2. It means that demand in that case is elastic. Your answer is -3. It means that demand in that case is elastic. Okay? So, any answer, in this case you have calculated, any answer above 1 means that demand is elastic. So, a question can come like this. They give you a demand function. Okay? Question number A. Calculate price elasticity of this particular good. You have calculated. Question B. Depending on your answer on question on A, is demand elastic or inelastic? Okay? So, depending on that particular answer, if for instance you've calculated on question A, you've calculated, and then you found that elasticity is, let's say, -2.5. Already, the 2.5 is greater than 1. So it means that demand for this particular good is elastic. But if you've calculated, and then you found that your answer is, let's say, -0.5, for instance, 0.5 is less than 1. So in that case, it means that demand is inelastic. Demand is inelastic. It's not elastic. Okay? So the first rule is that if your answer is greater than 1, then demand is elastic. The second rule, if the answer lies between -1 and 0, okay? If your answer lies between -1 and 0, then demand is inelastic, which means demand is not elastic, it's inelastic. Alright, so basically, oh wait, Mr. Mpanza, has this somehow helped?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Alright, yeah, so we said demand is elastic if price elasticity is more negative than -1. Alright, demand is inelastic, as I've already said. We say that demand is inelastic. Being inelastic means that this thing is not, I mean, it's opposite of being elastic, right? It's inelastic, yeah. So the inelastic here means that if you increase price, for instance, by 1% or by 10%, quantity demanded is not going to change beyond the 10% increase in price. Okay? You have increased the price, but the demand has not really reduced. Which means that your demand in this case is inelastic. In that case, so this is what managers should know. You as a manager are supposed to know the type of market you are dealing with. Because if you understand the nature of the market you are dealing with, then you'll be able to play around with price. That is why sometimes you find these companies like Zesco, they can play with price because they know that they're in a monopoly. I mean, Zesco is a monopoly anyways. Yes, there's copper belt energy, but really and truly, it's nothing compared to Zesco. You see that, right? So Zesco can just wake up, go in that board meeting and decide that, okay, what do we do? How do we punish Zambians? Okay, we're going to punish Zambians by increasing the rates by 10%. Yeah, we're going to complain. Economists will wake up, flood social media. But the answer is Zesco say this increase by 10%. So they understand the type of market they're dealing with. Alright. Okay. So with elasticity, when we say demand is elastic, we mean that increase the price, demand is going to reduce more than the increase in the price. Demand is inelastic even if you increase the price. Okay, even if you increase the price, so the impact on the quantity demanded is negligible. Okay, the impact is too negligible. You don't even consider it as an impact because demand is inelastic. And mathematically, the way we know that demand for this particular commodity is inelastic is if after calculating we find that our answer is lying between 0 and -1. For instance, if an answer like negative 0 point something, okay, negative 0.9, negative 0.8, negative 0 point shanshan, already it's a 0 point, which means that it's lying between 0 and 1. Okay, it's lying between 0 and 1. Now, there are times when you increase price by 10%, quantity demanded also reduces exactly by 10%. Okay, so of course you have a 10 on top, you have a 10 down. What do you have? 1. Okay, so if there is that 1-to-1 type of impact, you increase price by 10%, quantity demanded also reduces by 10%, then in that case we say that demand is unit elastic or unitary elastic. So it's unit. Why is it unit? It's going 1 for 1. You increase price by 10%, quantity demanded reduces by 10%. You see that? So as a manager, you're supposed to know, okay, if we were to increase the price of our Vatra by 10%, how is that going to affect quantity demanded? If you know that it's 1-to-1, read and true, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any sense. You increase the price by 10%, then the quantity demanded reduces by 10%. What are you doing? Okay, so you are supposed to know the type of market you are dealing with, because that will help you determine the nature of elasticity that is present in that particular market structure. And once you know the nature of elasticity that is present in that particular market structure, it will be easy for you to play around with consumers' minds. Okay, all right. For instance, if you operate in a perfectly competitive market, everyone is selling tomato. Okay, everyone is selling tomato, and the assumption under perfect competition, funny one, the assumption is that consumers have got they know everything in terms of knowledge. They have information. There is nothing like information asymmetry. No. Information is everywhere. So assume you're in such a market, you operate under such a market structure, and then your neighbor is saying tomato, you're also saying tomato, 100 of you are saying tomato, and then you wake up and say, mine, for me, I'm going to increase my price. You are failing to understand the concept of elasticity. Okay, because yes, it's good, increase the price, but no one is going to buy from your tomato. Is going to buy your tomato because they know that Padua market banda tomato has increased, but I can get the same quality of tomato, actually maybe even better ones from Amake Mwale. So people will now go to the other one. So it's very much important to know, such things. Know the type of market you are dealing with. If you're operating in a monopoly, well and good, you can do what you want. because people have got no choice. Consumers have got no choice. They will still buy regardless of what you end up doing. But if you are operating in a market that is perfectly competitive, playing around with price is the worst, mechanism that you can use. Okay, fine. So we've talked about elastic demand, we've talked about inelastic demand, and we've also talked about unit elastic demand. So with unit, it's 1 for 1. You increase price by 1%, quantity demanded also reduces by 1%. Now, I've said that there are certain extreme cases, okay, of inelastic demand, right? There are certain types of goods whose demand is just inelastic. I've given an example of insulin. Whether they like it or not, diabetics, they just have to get insulin and they jab themselves. Okay? So even if the price doubles, I mean, if they don't jab themselves, they'll die. So to avoid dying early, yeah, they have to go and buy, regardless of the price, right? The other one that is inelastic, especially in Zambia, is fuel. Fuel is on high demand, right? Even if ARB wakes up today, that Kamanthri thing that they do. I don't know if it's now 2 months or whatever it is, 1 month. Even if the fuel pump price is increased, the point is, people with cars will still have to buy fuel, whether they like it or not, whether they complain, they do whatever. As long as the decision has been concluded by ARB, it's 30 kwacha per liter. There's nothing you can do but buying at 30 kwacha per liter. So those are extreme cases. So that's an example of inelastic goods. Okay. So oil, for instance, yeah, you can have such, things to do with insulin and all that. Actually, the insulin thing is the most common example. Okay. So let me get some feedback. Yeah, this far, how are we? Is everything alright? It's like people having issues with the internet. Mr. Mpanza, is everything alright?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Well, alright, that's good. If at all there are questions, please forward them. Let me know. Salt as well. If they do so increase the price people buy, I'm telling you, this is true. Yeah, salt is more like a necessity, right? Yeah, there's nothing that you can do. You just have to buy. Yeah, so that's another example. Thanks for that contribution. Thanks for that contribution, Madam Chisenga Sarah. Alright. Okay. Now, I've talked about how important it is to pay attention to elasticity. Especially if you're holding that, position that requires decision making. Because a wrong understanding about elasticity can land your company into problems. Okay? For instance, here's the situation. You as a manager, you have miscalculated. Okay? You have miscalculated, for you think that our demand is actually inelastic. Okay? We can increase the price. It's okay. Minus knowing that there's another company somewhere that is offering the same service. Same services, everything. Maybe even better than you. But you think you're the only one. You increase the price. Of course, consumers know that there's FEM B. So they'll go to FEM B. You lose out. Okay? So that is why it's very important to pay attention to elasticity. And anyway, these are things that people, especially those people that make decisions, these are things that they don't really pay attention to. They only pay attention to this when a calamity has occurred to the firm. Yeah. So how about using elasticity for decision making? Okay, here's the situation where the initial price of tickets is 20 kwacha. Okay, and let's say there's a show, and tickets are going at 20 kwacha, and you find that when the price is 20 kwacha, 50 tickets are bought. Okay, so total revenue that you are going to realize is just price times quantity. All right, so total revenue is equal to price times quantity. So if you're writing right, total revenue is equal to price times quantity. So the total revenue that is going to be realized is just 50 by 20, which is 1,000 kwacha. So you've made 1,000 kwacha from your show. Okay, now let's make an assumption. Okay, let's make an assumption that demand for ticket sales is very sensitive. That is, it's elastic. So demand is elastic, such that when you increase the price from 25 or from 20 to 25, you find that you can only sell 30 tickets. Initially, when the price was 20, you could sell 50 tickets and earn a revenue of 1,000 kwacha. You could make 1,000 kwacha. But now, because you miscalculated, you thought that we're operating in a monopoly, forgetting that the people know that this is just too much. They won't come. Some will come, of course, but some won't come. All right. So you increase the price to 25. Only 30 tickets are sold. So in this case, total revenue will be 25 by 30, which is 750. So check this out. When the price was 20 kwacha, you managed to sell 50 tickets, and you had 1,000 kwacha. You are deceived. You have deceived yourself. You have increased the price. Then you can only make 750 kwacha, which means that you have made a loss of 250 because you have miscalculated. You are failing to understand the nature of market you are dealing with. Okay, so if this is a firm, then obviously you'll be fired as a manager. You'll be fired. You're not doing your job. Why are we making losses? Hey, blah, blah, blah. You know what happens, right? Yeah. So this therefore stresses the importance of paying attention to elasticity. It's very important to pay attention to elasticity. At least know the nature of the market you are in. Okay. If you know that you are a firm that is producing water, for instance, you have to know that you are not the only one who is producing water. There's Vatra, there's Shani, there's Shan. So if you try to play around with your price, me as a rational consumer, I'll just stop. I'll go for the alternative. It means that you've lost a fan of Vatra. Just to give an example. Alright. So what it is that if the quantity demanded is very sensitive to price, that is, you increase the price, quantity demanded reduces drastically, then higher fares will just discourage people from attending the event, and ultimately this is going to negatively affect your revenue. Okay, but of course, given a situation where demand is relatively sensitive to the price, you increase the price, demand reduces, but not to that margin, then it's obviously that the higher fares, the higher price is going to compensate. Okay, the higher fares more than compensate for the reduced volume, and therefore your total revenue is going to increase. So the key is that at least know what you are doing. Check if you have competitors somewhere. If you have competitors, dare not to play around with price. You are going to cry. But if you know you are alone, then you can do what you want. It's okay. All right. Okay, cool. So what you've said here is a situation where you have increased the price and your total revenue has reduced. Why? Because demand is sensitive. Demand is elastic. But how about a situation where demand is insensitive or relatively insensitive? Okay, what happens when demand is inelastic? What happens? So here's the situation, the same example. Okay, the price for one ticket is 20 kwacha. Okay, so when the price is 20, you can sell 50. Cool, you are making 1,000 kwacha. However, in the second scenario, you increase the price of tickets to 25. Okay, so this is a decision made by a manager who has done a market research, right? They've done their market research and they've come to a conclusion that it's okay for us to increase the price. We understand the nature of the market we're dealing with. Cool. So they increase the price to 25 kwacha, and quantity demanded reduces to 45. Initially, remember, when the price was 20, you could sell 50 tickets. Now you increase the price to 25, you can only sell 45. Okay, cool. Let's see the mathematics. When you calculate for total revenue, price times quantity, you find that you have 1,125 as the income. Initially, when the price was at 20 kwacha, you could only make 1,000 kwacha. But now, you have 125 on top. So you have got 125 more. What's the secret? What is the secret? Why is it that in the first scenario, after increasing the price, you had this loss of 250? But now, after increasing the price, you have actually made the profit. 125 more. What's the secret? The secret is knowing the nature of the market you're dealing with. If you know that in this particular market demand is inelastic, it's okay, you can play around with the price. Because check, here in the first scenario, after increasing the price, quantity demanded reduced from 50 to 30. So the reduction was just too much. Why? Because demand is elastic. Okay? But in the second case, the reduction in quantity, yes, there's the reduction, but we are saying that quantity demanded in this case is relatively insensitive. Okay, it's insensitive. So here the reduction in the second scenario is just 5 units, from 50 to 45. So that increase in price has actually compensated the reduction in the quantity. Because check, you've increased the price from 20 to 25. Then the quantity demanded has only reduced by 5. So when you do calculations, you are finding that you have actually made a profit. You have made a profit of 125. But then, so this represents two types of managers. There's one who did not do any market research. They just wake up and say, we can do this. Let's go ahead. Boom, signed by the director. Fine. Second one is someone who has done a market research. They understand the type of market they're dealing with. They know that our market, the demand in our market is inelastic. So you can increase the price and we're still going to make profit. Alright? So yeah. So in this case, a slight increase in the price. So we're saying that depending on the nature of elasticity we're dealing with. Is it elastic, inelastic, or whatever? So depending on the nature of how elastic demand is, an increase in price may either increase total revenue or reduce total revenue. Alright? So it depends with what is existing in your market. Do you have a market where demand is elastic or a market where demand is inelastic? If demand in your market is elastic, then dare you not to play with the price. Okay? But if demand is inelastic, well and good, go ahead, play around with the price. Remember, you're also trying to maximize your profit. You increase the price, you make more money. Life goes on. Alright? So the same applies to price cuts. Okay? A price cut, okay, a cut in the price may sometimes raise revenue if demand is elastic, of course. Okay, or it might actually reduce your revenue if demand is elastic. You reduce the price if demand is elastic. You reduce the price, then more people are going to come, more people are going to buy, which means that you are going to make your profit. But if demand in your market is inelastic, even if you reduce the price, people are still not coming. which means you're going to have a loss. You have reduced the price, one. Two, demand is also on the negative side. So what are you doing? You're doing nothing, really. Okay, so the two examples illustrates how business entities use elasticity of demand in making pricing decisions. So pricing decisions are based on elasticity. You're supposed to know how to play around with elasticity before you reach that conclusion about pricing. Alright, let me get some feedback. This far, how are we? Are we okay? Is this fine? Clarifications, questions? Questions? Alright, I suppose everything is alright. Yeah, okay, then we can continue. We can continue. Okay, so here is something that more like summarizes what I've been talking about. Okay, so we say that demand is elastic. Okay, if we have a number which is more to the negative side of -1, right? Okay, so I have numbers like negative 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and up to infinity. Okay, so when demand is elastic, okay, when demand is elastic, that is, you increase price, demand reduces more. Okay, then in such cases, if demand is elastic, then the price cuts is going to increase your total spending on the good. Why? Because demand is elastic. You reduce the price, more will be sold. Demand is responding more than you reduce the price, let's say by 1%, but the change in quantity demanded is going to be more than 1%, which means that the price cut in that case is going to increase your total spending on the good. Alright, if demand is inelastic, then the answer should be between 0 and 1. Okay, and in such cases, since demand is inelastic, then price cuts reduces total spending. I mean, demand is not responding. You reduce the price, but the increase in quantity demanded is not going to be enough, okay, to compensate for the reduction in the price. Therefore, total spending is going to reduce, and as total spending is reducing, it means that total revenue is also reducing. And if total revenue is reducing, then ultimately your profit margin will also be negatively affected. Alright? And then there are cases when you have unitary elasticity. That is, your answer is just -1 flat. -1. So what does that mean? It means that if price changes have no effect on spending. You increase the price by, you reduce price by 5%, quantity demanded also, so you reduce the price by 5%, quantity demanded increases by 5%. So you are ultimately going to have a 1 at the end of the day, and that 1 means that there is no impact on your revenue, and since there is no impact on your revenue, thank God if the cost side is okay, so that there can be no impact on your profit. Alright, so this is how we do the summary of price elasticity. Alright, so yeah.
Mr. Lungu.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lungu.
Yes,
okay, I've seen this summary, but just go back from the one we just showed us. Not this one, just before.
Is it this
This one. No. After this one.
This one?
No, just before you went to the conclusion.
Okay, so that's the conclusion, then it should be this one.
There's one I saw.
What's the content there?
This one shows the site rise in price may reduce revenue, the demand traffic, and the increased revenue demand reduction. No, not this one. It's just that one, which, yes, the last one before you gave us the conclusion.
Okay, so the page before conclusion is actually this one.
It's this one.
And then the page before this one is this one.
Okay. Okay. I even wanted to ask on the time I saw it, because it was like showing like at the how can I explain it?
Please,
I don't know how I can put
explain
it, but if I saw the time, because I read it, so I wanted to ask, but so that you moved it.
Okay. No, find a way of asking, sir, please. Find a way. Because maybe that question is the same question that someone is trying to ask. So please, ask.
Yeah. Because it was like, it changed. Even where I'm writing, I started changing where we are saying, because what we are saying is elastic, it's when it's more than -1 going up.
Yes.
Can be 1, -1, 2, and so on, right? But that one, it was like it was saying opposite of this. So I even changed.
It was?
It was like almost the opposite of this.
It was
So I even
opposite
changed.
that. What do you mean it was opposite? Is it? So it's not on this one. It's not on this page that I've displayed.
No. That's why after you have explained this one. So anyway, I got it. Anyway, I got it. I don't know how to say it.
Maybe
Anyway,
you
I
have
got it.
understood, but maybe there's someone who is also trying to understand the same thing. That's why I'm really trying hard to get the question. Okay, let's do this. Can you read what you have written?
What have you done?
Maybe that will help me understand the question.
Actually, me, I'm just writing summarized notes from what you are teaching us. Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. For me, what I lost is elastic when it's more than 1. Can be -1 going up.
Yes.
And in elastic, less than 1 or between 0 to -1 or 1. I even put some examples.
So
now,
so in elastic, or maybe I should just do a quick summary. When we are saying demand is elastic, okay, it means that your answer is on the negative side of -1. That is, you have, let's say, -1 point something going to infinity. Then demand is elastic, because it means that you increase price by 1%, for instance, quantity demand is going to reduce by more than 1%. Then demand is elastic. All right. Demand is inelastic if, okay, demand is inelastic if your value is lying between 0 and 1. Between means that the number should be between 0 and 1. It shouldn't be 1 itself, and it should be 0. It should be lying between these two. Okay, then demand is inelastic. If you've calculated and then you found that your answer is exactly 1, Then there we say that we have unit elastic or unitary elastic. Okay? So if this is what you've written, then that's cool. Right, Mr. Mpanza?
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
in elastic, we are giving example of, it's where you're giving example of this.
Yes.
Okay. So, this is not the one we said, this one, whether they increase,
Mm.
the demand will be there because we have no
Exactly.
to buy.
Exactly.
Okay. Because I'm looking at the same page you're looking at, the one which is the number 2 from the bottom.
Mm.
You have seen it?
Mm-hmm.
It says a price rise in price may reduce revenue if demand is elastic,
Mm-hmm.
and increase revenue if demand is inelastic.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, a cut in price may sometimes raise revenue if demand is inelastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it may reduce revenue if demand is inelastic.
Yes.
So now, are we not saying inelastic is where who complain? But we're going to buy. So how is it going to be reducing the demand?
Okay. All right, I get the question. I get it now. All right. So what we are saying is that given a situation where demand is elastic, okay, where demand is elastic because the response of consumers is more than the increase, for instance, in the price, right? So they are saying that thus a slight rise, so there's a rise in the prices, right? A slight rise in the prices may reduce demand may reduce revenue if demand is elastic. Why? Let's pause there. Why? We should understand why. The why is that total revenue is equal to price times quantity. So if yes, the price is increasing but demand is elastic, so even if the price is increasing, demand quantity is reducing, right? Which means the whole P times Q is reducing. All right. So because of that, a slight rise in the price is going to reduce revenue if demand is elastic. Cool. And increase revenue if demand is inelastic. So revenue can only increase after a rise in price if and only if demand is inelastic. Meaning that even if the price has been increased, people are still purchasing because they have no choice, as you have put it already. They have no choice. They have to buy. So this is going to increase the revenue. Because check, you are increasing the price. Even if some people are trying to dilly-dally, do this and that, they are still going to buy. Okay? So this is going to increase your revenue. So the next statement is saying, in the same manner, a cut in the price, so you have reduced the price. Okay? A cut in the price may sometimes raise revenue if demand is what? Elastic. So why? Okay, why can this happen? The answer is you have reduced the price. Let's assume Shoprite has reduced, let's say the price for macaron, for instance. Okay, and that reduction, if demand is indeed elastic, the cut in the price, going back to the laws to the law of demand, a cut in the price should increase quantity demanded. All right. So this cut in the price may sometimes raise revenue. Why? Because revenue is price times quantity. So yes, there's a reduction in the price, but there is an increase in quantity demanded. Meaning that the whole total revenue, which is the price times quantity, is going to increase. All right? Because demand is elastic. Demand is responding to this reduction in the price. People are purchasing more. Why? Because there is this reduction in the price. And because of that, total revenue which is price multiplied by quantity, is going to increase. Alright? While it may reduce revenue if demand is inelastic. So listen to this. You have cut the prices, yes, fine. You have reduced the price, yes, fine. But what if consumers don't care about the reduction in the price? The reduction in the price is not inducing them to buy more. Why? Because demand is inelastic. So even if you have reduced the price, people have not responded to this reduction in the price. Okay? Quantity demanded has not increased as a result of a reduction in the price. It means that your total revenue is going to reduce. So that is what is going on here. Alright? Has this helped, Mr. Mpanza?
Yes, of course. I really think there is a price there. From the top there, we are talking about demand. And here they change the sentence and say the price. Yes. I get it.
Okay, we thank God for that. Alright, is there another question before we shift to income? And I'm only remaining with about 7 minutes or so, but I'll still introduce elasticity, income elasticity. Because remember, we have a target. The target is to answer questions, to help us answer question 6 the assignment, which is talking about elasticity. Yeah, but of course, what we've done is just the theory part. There is now the mathematical part, which, as I've said in the beginning, we are going to do the mathematical part tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow is Thursday, right? Okay, fine. Yeah, fine. Yeah, let's do it tomorrow. We do the mathematical part. So tomorrow we're going to do just a bit of calculus, just per surface calculus, just per surface. Because for every one of us to understand question 6, we're still going to need calculus, because we're going to do some differentiation, just a bit. Yeah, so as I promised in the beginning, we need to do calculus. So we're going to do calculus tomorrow, just a bit per surface. There's nothing scary, just a bit. All right. Okay, so if we have understood price elasticity, in the remaining 6 minutes, I can introduce income elasticity of demand. So, with income elasticity, remember under price, we are saying that we are trying to analyze the impact, all right, the impact of price on quantity demanded. But in this case, we are just analyzing the impact of a percentage change in income on percentage change in quantity demanded. If there is a percentage change in my income, how is that going to affect the quantities that I'm demanding? But earlier on, we are looking at it from price perspective. Price. No wonder it's called price elasticity of demand. But now we have migrated. We are now talking about the income elasticity of demand. So the analysis is, if income is changed by this percent, how is that going to affect the quantity that we are demanding? So that is income elasticity of demand. So income elasticity of demand measures nothing but changes in quantity of a good demanded as a result of a change in income. Okay, so of course, ceteris paribus, you have to hold other factors constant. Okay, so that is the income elasticity of demand. So income elasticity of demand is nothing but the percentage change in quantity demanded as a result of the percentage change in income. So it's the change in quantity per change in income. Under price, we are saying that it's change in quantity per change in price, but now it's change in quantity per change in income. So that is the income elasticity of demand. Okay, But of course, income elasticity of demand can either be positive or negative, depending now on the type of the good we are dealing with. So remember, I think we talked about normal goods, inferior goods, those things, right? Yeah, so they've come back. Okay? So, what's the key? The key is that income elasticity can either be negative or positive, depending on the type of the good under consideration. Okay? So, of course, the analysis now is based on income. If your income, your salary is increased, okay, by 10%, if you're a civil servant, for instance, how is this going to affect the quantity demanded? So, you as the manager, you have to understand, okay? You have to understand, you have to know that, okay, for instance, if I increase the salaries for my workers, how is this going to affect their livelihood? Okay, is this going to be a positive impact? Okay, if yes, to what extent, to what degree? All right, so that's income elasticity of demand. So of course, it depends on the nature and type of the good you're dealing with. Are you dealing with an inferior good? Are you dealing with a luxury good? Are you dealing with a normal good? Are you dealing with a vibrant good? All right, so we are going to discuss all these next time we're going to meet, but we need to do some some refresher work on calculus, because that will help us forge ahead. Yeah, that will help us forge ahead.